Hello everybody, it's Bourbon Bill, and tonight, a very special episode. We're diving into one of my favorite yearly releases, hot off the press. There it is. Woodford Batch Proof 2023. Coming in at 124.7 proof. Compute 62.35% alcohol by volume. So pretty excited for this one, because last year, the 118.4 that you see here was one of my favorites. Made my top 10 list last year for bourbons of the year. This is like my second or third bottle of this, and as you can see, she's a little less than half. I really dug the one last year. Couldn't say enough good things about it. It just had such a good balance of like bright caramel and some fruit notes mixed with some oak. It just was a nice blend of kind of young and kind of old that turned out really well. So I did love it. I said it did make my top 10. I forget exactly where, but an excellent bottle. By the way, big shout out to my buddy Mike for helping procure this bottle for me. Thanks again, sir. This review brought to you by you. For my viewers from the great state of PA, this is not released in PA yet, so keep your eyes peeled. Hopefully this review helps you make a decision on whether you want to pick one up or not when it does eventually drop here. So this year you might ask yourself, well, what's different, Bourbon Bill? You know, it's 124.7, sure. It's higher proof. What else has changed? Well, this is the first release under the new master distiller, Elizabeth McCall. But one other sad notable difference, 700 mils. That's right. Woodford has stolen from you 50 mils. Might be hard to see on here. I'll include a picture. They literally just made this thick glass base even thicker to suck away an extra 50 mils of juice from you. So the value has lowered this year compared to last year because we're missing 50 mils of deliciousness. I forget, they might have been like 120 last year. I think they were 120 a bottle last year. Could have been wrong about that. They are now $130 hairs a bottle MSRP. So price is pretty high on these, I will say. Well, heck, this is as high as the Blood Oath we just reviewed not that long ago. 130 bucks, but at least this one packs some proof. Now, what kind of stinks about these, I'm going to be honest, I love last year's, is why I got this year's. Lack of transparency. This thing is probably the least transparent bottle. At least Blood Oath gave you the ages of the blend. This gives you nothing. I mean, this bottle is blank except for, you know, your Surgeon General's warning and the front label. We have no age range in here whatsoever. We got nothing. I mean, online there's some tasting notes, which I didn't read, but that's it. Just pretty nondescript. But this is your only chance to taste Woodford at a higher proof than 90.4. So let's get into it. Is it delicious? Is it worth $130 hairs? Should you buy it? Color? Nice and dark. What we like to see on here for a batch/barrel proof. I will note last year's 118.4 pulled most of its barrels from the lower elevations in the rick house, hence its lower proof. Obviously, we've started pulling barrels from up top again for this proof. Let's give it a nosing. Oh, gosh, that smells delicious. I get tons of caramel, tons of vanilla notes on here. Definitely like some baking spices. I'm getting some like red fruits, not quite cherry cola notes, but there's like some red fruits tending in that direction. A lot of chocolate on here. It's like a chocolate brownie with a little vanilla whipped cream on top. Drizzled with some caramel. And there's some oak presence here on the nose as well. So the nose is pretty dang good. Let's give her a sip. Wow. Oh, that's good. Delicious. Brings a lot of the caramel, the vanilla, a lot of chocolate in here. Good bit of oak. It's pretty thick on the mouthfeel. Long finish with the 124.7 proof. It's definitely not all old bourbon because there's that mix of like the younger bright caramel notes in there. But then it's not all young because there's a good oak backbone to this. So I would say either they've heat cycled this many summers, or they added a little, some aged stuff to this to keep it a well balanced blend. So I would say, from my memory, we'll compare it in a second. This is well balanced like last year's, and we'll get to the differences in flavor. Let's take one more sip here. Yeah, on that sip, I got some darker notes like chocolate, a little bit of tobacco, barrel char. I got some barrel char on there, and then the caramel and the oak. It's delicious. Bourbon Bill's rating is going to receive the coveted A+ score, which will mean it will compete for my top 10 bourbons of the year. Do I like its price and transparency? No. I mean, I wish it was like 100, 90 even would be better in terms of the price point, but if you pay up for the 130 and you like the Woodford profile and you like the one from last year, I don't think you're going to be disappointed in this year's. So the value on these just isn't high, but what they deliver is pretty delicious and kind of unique. I don't really necessarily get that flavor profile from much else, which is probably why I went back to last year's quite a bit. Now let's compare it to last year's just for you. We'll get the old blue Glencairn here. These things always just had good cores, good bottle. I mean, the bottle shape's great. It's nice and heavy. Feels expensive in the hand. A little more in there. Alright. We got last year's 118.4 in the blue. And of course this year's in the clear. Let's give the old 2022 here a sniff. So this is actually smells a little bit younger than the new one. The new one was a fresh crack today, by the way, and these do tend to get better as they open up. So if I'm that pleased with it now, I'm going to be very pleased with it when it opens up a little bit, by the way. Okay, so this tends to be a little bit more caramely vanilla up front. It's a little bit less dark on the nose than the new one. The oak's there, but it's just not quite as deep, dark, and rich. Let's take a sip. Oh yeah. Man, that's good. They are a little different. Last year's in the blue here had a little bit more like stone fruit, a little bit more fruity pop in the beginning, followed by the caramel, and then a nice integration of some oak, but not quite as much oak. Man, that is tough. I think I have to give the nod to the new one though, because that is my jam. It dials back the fruit content from last year, adds more vanilla, caramel, chocolate notes, dials up the oak. So that's going to be kind of the differences here between these two. If you liked last year's, you're going to love this year's. If you thought it was worth the money last year, it's definitely going to be worth the money this year for you. For Bourbon Bill's rating in my palate, I enjoy it. It's an A+ rating. Hate the price though, gotta say that. Now you might say, Bourbon Bill, I don't have $130. What could I get in barrel strength that might be close? How about a little Elijah Craig Barrel Proof for like 65, 70 bucks. So not quite half price, but pretty close. This one happens to be batch C922. And I picked this one because, first off, A123 was a special hitter. I hear B523 is kind of crappy, but it hasn't dropped in PA yet, so I don't have one to review for you. Can't say for sure. But this one's 124.8. So literally only 0.1 proof off from our new Woodford. Alright, let's pour this one up in the green. So if you'll recall, we do like Elijah Craig Barrel Proof on this channel, and C922 was quite good. Let's give it a nosing. Less sweet here, just a drier, peanutty, caramel, brown sugar, oak kind of nose. It's kind of the Heaven Hill nuttiness profile. So similar, but not quite the same. Let's take a sip. That's good. There's more well-aged oak in here that I'm just a sucker for on the Elijah Craig. Gotta say that. I don't know if it's as complex though. Back to the Woodford. So, overall, it's going to kind of be palate preference there for you, but they're about equal. The Woodford comes off a little younger overall. It's not 12 years old, right? Not all of it in there anyway is, if any. But it's not too far off this Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. I don't know. I'm hard pressed to pick a winner between those two, but I will say that the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof is a much better buy at only 65 to 70 bucks. So we are going to say that. But I'm just not sure that it's not as complex though, if we're going to give one ding to the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. Now, one final comparison just for you. Uh-oh, we broke out the Stag Junior, minus the Junior, because this is batch 18. Which didn't, lost to Junior. So, look, I get that these are MSRP 60. So actually less than half price at MSRP of the Woodford. But you may end up yourself paying $130, $150 for one of these, even more. Do we condone that? No. But for something that you may find for a similar price, well, let's give it a tasting. Like I said, this is batch 18. The latest one I have, sorry, I haven't seen any of those other. I know they've changed the batch numbers now and their year range and ABC and all that crap. Haven't seen any. Didn't win the PA lottery, so we're not going to see one either. We'll put the Stag in a gold here. So batch 18 is the newest one I have, but I don't think it was my favorite. I preferred batch 16 over 18. But let's give 18 a nosing. So this obviously has the cherry cola notes. With some brown sugars, but it's just unmistakably Buffalo Trace profile. It's just cherry cola, baby. Let's give it a sip. Delicious. Cherry cola notes, some caramel, some oak. Overall delicious sip. Forgot to mention, this one comes in at 131 proof, compute 65.5% alcohol by volume. So the highest proof here, but probably the quickest finish and the thinnest. So, back to our Woodford. Some people are going to say this is blasphemous. The Woodford Batch Proof from 2023 is better than that Batch 18 Stag Junior. I know. Crucify me now. But I prefer that better than the Batch 18. For the reasons I mentioned. Thicker on the mouthfeel, more complex flavor. But if cherry cola is your jam, you are going to prefer the Stag. I get the Stag is supposed to be cheaper, so again, we're not helping the value proposition here for the Woodford. But all in all, I think the Woodford is a delicious sip. It's a must-have for my bar, and you should probably pick one up if you don't have one, or if you liked last year's, 100% pick up this year's. If you like what we saw tonight, please like, comment, and most importantly, hit that subscribe button. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.